Hello, everyone, and welcome to Celebrating Cinema, a podcast for the love of cinema. I'm your host, Laura Gommans, and I'm here with Lab 111's programmer, Tom Ooms.
Brains.
Thank you. And our producer, Elliot Bloom.
Brains.
We gave them both microphones. I'm starting to doubt why we did that. Hey, before we get started, here's a little update for fun things going on at Lab 111 in Amsterdam in the coming weeks. Things are going to get sweaty up in your favorite rep cinema because our summer is all about our heat wave program. From Rear Window to Y Tu Mama Tambien, from Dog Day Afternoon to After Sun, as well as dance-alongs to Dirty Dancing and Stop Making Sense. You can find your tickets for those at lab111.nl or in the show notes. Zombies in cinema have been around for a whole ass century, and they've gone through so many iterations. Originally a mystical figure rooted in Haitian voodoo, the zombie first appeared on screen in the 1930s as, honestly, quite a racist trope. But the zombie evolved. Romero's Night of the Living Dead was the first to portray the zombie as full-on human-eating gore. And after that, we've seen zombies in every way imaginable. Via the VHS fodder of the 80s to the chicken jockeys of today. In 2002, 28 Days Later transformed the brain-eating, slow-walking undead to something very fast and very scary. And since that, zombies have come back from the dead. With 28 years later in theaters, we're diving into the history of zombies in cinema. First off, Tom, what have you been watching?
So I'm making this list of films next to my list of favorite films of all time. Yeah. But that's the list of films that I talk about and think about more than the list of films that I say are my favorite films of all time.
I would love to say that I'm following your train of thought. Is it just movies that you think about a lot?
Yeah. And one of them on the list is The Talented Mr. Ripley with young Matt Damon, Patricia Highsmith novel, done by Anthony Minghella, the guy who made The English Patient. It's like a movie your mom would like.
I love that movie.
And I think about that film way too often.
Everyone's hot in it.
And it has a fantastic Philip Seymour Hoffman, whose first line is, "Don't you want to fuck just everything that moves?" It's an adaptation of the novel of the same name by Patricia Highsmith. And this July, we're releasing the first adaptation of that novel, Plein Soleil, or Purple Noon, as it's called in the States, with Alain Delon in a role that Matt Damon portrayed in the Minghella movie. Mm-hmm. So I thought, let's just see the other one for the bajillionth time without any reason. And that film is also in our Heatwave program.
Amazing.
And you?
Two very important things. One, not cinematic, but Dua Lipa. She was in Amsterdam.
That's what you've been watching.
No, but you have to understand what a crazy day I had yesterday because I lost the Ticketmaster wars, couldn't get a ticket. Then I did the ticket swap thing. People were charging crazy prices for tickets, and then an hour before the concert starts, I get a text from my friend going, "I have a spare ticket. When can you be here?" And I just
you can be a background singer.
Dua Lipa canceled. Do you know? You're the only one who knows all of her songs. I just put my shoes on and ran, and I was there, and it was amazing. She's the best. I always pride myself in having a very credible taste in music, but also Dua Lipa. So, and then movie-wise,
thank God for not saying that's a guilty pleasure.
No, I don't believe in guilty pleasures.
No, they don't exist.
No, it's just she's amazing. Also, Kevin Parker produced her whole album, so it's basically Tame Impala. So. There goes my indie status. Anyway, movie-wise, dipping immediately into Cage Corner, National Treasure.
Whoa, that was... We've never been in that corner so quickly, I think.
Oh, I always try. I spent a week with my parents, and it's always really hard to decide what to watch with your parents, especially my parents, who are people who just watch linear television and just kind of roll with that. What would they like? It's okay, gamble, but National Treasure. They loved it, and they acted like it was the best cinema they have ever seen in their lives. They're like, that was amazing. It was funny. It was exciting. They stole the Declaration of Independence. It was just it blew their minds, and I was so proud. So if anyone is ever looking for a movie to watch with your parents, Nash Treasure.
Nash Treasure.
Nash Treasure. Also, if you want to play a drinking game, there's two ways to do it. You can either drink every time they say the Declaration of Independence, or if you want to die, you can drink every time they say either the Declaration of Independence or the Declaration. you will die. That's probably an insane drinking game that you should never play. Drink responsibly, please.
I find it fascinating you have such a soft spot for that film because we were talking about this before the episode started. I think this is one of those films where I'm like, did I really see that? Did I watch that? I'm not sure.
It is a bit of a fever dream, and I realize that technically it's a bad movie, but I love it.
That's fine.
It's just like him going...
Again, not a guilty pleasure.
He finds a pipe and then he goes, that must mean this thing, which is a quote from a text that's from and there's a word in that's highlighted and it's ridiculous and I love it.
If you would have been older, you would have been one of those. I've read all the Dan Brown books.
I'm older than I look.
And you
I'm the exact right age for Dan Brown novels.
You're older than you look, but we're on a podcast. So, you know.
Okay, zombies.
Well, transitioned nicely, didn't you?
We can't really talk about the zombie in cinema without diving into a little pre-cinema history lesson about the whitewashing of the zombie, because frankly, they have a really, really tragic backstory. Zombies as we know them today have been born out of the savage subjugation of enslaved people. African people were being brought over by the French to be slaves in Haiti, which was then still called Saint-Domingue. Like in many cultures, they believed that if you were murdered or died by suicide, your soul would be stuck between life and death. But as you can imagine, with the gruesome living conditions, a lot of people died that way. So voodoo, not to be confused with voodoo because that's apparently the Americanized version of it, it's a religion originating in West Africa and practiced in the Americas, particularly in Haiti and Louisiana among enslaved people. And in voodoo culture, it was believed that a witch doctor could bring the corpse back to life and keep the animated corpse as a slave, condemned to roam the plantations forever. Undead slaves at once denied their own bodies were yet again trapped inside them. They called this creature the zombie with an I. Then, in 1929, American journalist William Seabrook, he was really fascinated with Haitian culture, and he introduced the zombie to America with his book, The Magic Island, detailing the voodoo or the vodou and witchcraft practices of the former slaves. Okay, then we get to cinema. 3 years later, in 1932, we have the first zombies on screen. And White Zombies, starring, and we can never get rid of this fucker, Bela Lugosi. There he is again. Someone we mentioned a lot in our vampires episode. Listen to that one if you haven't already. Basically, the story of White Zombie is this young, sexy couple, Madeline and Neil, arriving to Haiti to get married. Then this plantation owner gets help of a voodoo master called Murder Legendre.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I am not. Sorry, this is so true. Basically, he asks him, like, hey, can you turn Madeline into a zombie so he can then possess her? And then Neil has to confront the dark forces of voodoo to rescue her and break the spell. Basically, what this movie does is it suggests, like, all the terrible things that could happen if we fail to contain these savages. Because, you know, if we don't keep them down, they'll get to your lily white, lovely virgin bride, which is quite terrible. So the zombie originated in slavery, but throughout the years, the story of the zombie, much like with vampires, became the story of humans. The undead have always represented whatever fears we have at the time, from the fear of the other to pandemics, consumerism, technology, and moral decay. Whatever the zombie represents, the story of zombies is mostly about the ethical decisions that survivors have to make. Tom, have you seen White Zombie?
No, I haven't.
Me neither. It was really hard to find.
This is fascinating because I did not know that it went back to slavery, zombies as a concept.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm very much familiar with the voodoo culture aspect of what you just described about trapping the body and then witch doctors, etc. But I never connected it to, in that sense, to zombies and then even back to slavery. Even though if you watch films like, there's a sort of film noir, I can't remember from which year, I think the 1940s, called I Walked with a Zombie, which very much has these themes. So it's interesting that when you go further back in the history of zombie cinema, the relation between the sort of Haitian culture and witch doctors and voodoo trappings and stuff like that is much more connected.
Yeah.
And then probably righteously, everybody was like, maybe we need to get that sort of culture out of it and just become
take the
stupid dead people running around eating brains.
Yeah. Yeah, funny that you mentioned I Walked with a Zombie, because that's a really big one that actually seems to, I haven't seen it personally, but it seems to like respect the
It does, yeah. It's very, it's
visually,
fantastic
it
film.
looks insane. Like it looks amazing.
So it was directed by a French guy called Jacques Tourneur, who, if you look at all the noirs from, well, if you look at any noir, if it's intriguing and really rubbing you the wrong way, it was made by a European guy getting out of Europe due to the Second World War. So Tourneur was a French guy who also made Cat People, which maybe the listeners might know better from the 80s remake with that fantastic song by David Bowie that was then later featured in Inglourious Basterds. Sorry, this is
Sidebar,
like multiple sort of connections, which is about a woman who gets chased by a cat and then turns into a cat. Super weird, surreal horror movies, which is also the case with I Walk with a Zombie. But there it does really, well, as much as a 40s movie can do, respect the culture that the sort of voodoo aspects comes from. And it's way more about that ritual, the ritualistic aspect, than what it becomes later in cinema with Romero and etc., etc.
You already just mentioned that there's like, we have this kind of zombie and then we have the later kind of zombies. But what is like the definition of a zombie? What can we agree that they all have in common?
Brains. No. When do they ever really eat brains? But why has that become a thing?
Started in the 80s with the Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, that's why, of course, yeah.
Right. Maybe they ate brains before, but that quote, like brains, is from, I believe, 86.
So your question is, what do they all have in common?
Like,
is this a rhetorical question?
No, but it's just kind of like, can we define what a zombie is? It's the undead. So it's basically the dead brought back to life.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. And I do think it's interesting. As I mentioned, we did a really big episode on vampires and did a lot of research on all the things that vampires represented through the ages and societal fears. And then maybe it's fun to compare the two, like what's the vampire on one side and the zombie on the other side.
I'll immediately, out of the gates, this is why I think zombies are a bit stupid.
Okay.
Because vampires are intriguing to me in that sense that they're about people that died and then have this sexualized bond and become undead forever. And zombies are just people that died and then come back as
Dum-dums.
Dum-dums. Yeah.
Yeah. I would almost say like the vampire is a very like aristocratic, singular, like he's always alone. He's very like hidden away from society. And I think the fear of zombies is the fear of the dumb masses. I think it's a working class ghoul.
Yeah.
It's like
working class. Jesus. Okay, yeah.
Because the vampire is very like, it's hidden away in the shadows, and a zombie can be your neighbor or your uncle or your boyfriend or your, and I think that mirrors a lot more of the fears of how society would react in a crisis. Well, I feel a little bit like this now about the current political climate, where it kind of feels like, you know, hey, your uncle like kind of turned into a zombie
and
in a way.
there's so many of them.
Am I going to have to kill him? You know, it's that fear of like...
Yeah, it's not distinguished. It's not... well, the thing is, what the zombie... It's such a dehumanized entity, really.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot talk with it. You cannot have a proper conversation with it about how was it living in the Middle Ages. Yeah. That's the difference with a vampire. Yeah. Even though you could also, of course, critique the vampire being a sort of elitist trope. Mm-hmm. This is the other side of the coin, where it's just dum-dums.
It's dum-dums.
It's dum-dum. But what I like about what you said is it's about the mass. It's the mass of the sort of... And you see that after Romero, you see that coming back a lot. Well, we'll get to Romero maybe later on.
Because I feel like every zombie movie starts with like someone zapping through and seeing a news broadcast being like, there was this lab leak or a virus or whatever, da-da-da-da-da. And then people not coming together quick enough to prevent it. And instead it's spreading around the world and then everybody dies. I think that's a huge fear.
It's never just one.
It's never just
There's
one.
There's never just one zombie. It's always this sort of huge...
Yeah.
This mass that you can't really... It's always this 5 people in a bar and a lot of people coming in.
Which movie are you talking about?
Well...
Yeah, so I think that's the big difference. Then also, I have to be Hermione Granger about this, of course, for a second. When you talk about things like 28 Days Later, when you talk about things like The Last of Us, everyone's really anal about not calling them zombies, and that's because they never died. People just get infected with a virus, so it's not people being raised back from the dead. It's just people like getting bit, and then it's like, oh fuck, here I go. So that's why we don't call those zombies.
This time,
we call them infected.
This time it's fungi.
What a fun guy.
What a fun guy.
But they're still just zombies, right?
Well, yeah, of course they're still just zombies. They act like zombies, but I just wanted to like Hermione Granger that for a second.
No, but Laura, this time, I think so. This was the boardroom meeting with what's his name again? Zack Snyder. So they're at the table for the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and they're like, Zach, this is going to be one of your first films. I'm not sure that we're going to allow you to make a remake of a George A. Romero zombie movie. And he just goes like, this time they can run.
Look.
Oh my God.
Well, that changes everything.
This changes everything.
Anyway, now that we've established what a zombie is really and why and what they represent, we're quickly going to dip back into the 40s because zombies have really caught on by the 40s. We have a whole bunch of zombie movies, among which King of the Zombies, its remake, Revenge of the Zombies, and Voodoo Man, and they all combine
Voodoo Man?
Voodoo Man.
Wow.
And what's weird about those three is that they all combine Nazi scientists with black sorcery, making for a really strange cocktail of weird racism. So then, we had...
God, we've come a long way.
We have come a long way.
Have we?
Yeah, we still have a long way to go, but Jesus.
Yeah, then we had I Walked with a Zombie, which took zombies more seriously. And then further down in the 40s and 50s, it became mostly about the fear of the bomb or a reaction to communism or a jab at American conformism. Then in 1968, we really start cooking because we've mentioned him a bunch of times before. George A. Romero comes through. Basically, until Romero came around, zombies were just like roaming around slowly and wide-eyed. And Romero made them actual flesh-eating, gory sons of bitches. Not by magic, but by science or cosmic radiation or something about a satellite. But anyway, in 1968, he directed Night of the Living Dead.
The killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered.
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
Again, putting it into a bit of historical context. After the Second World War, Americans felt like a bunch of really cool guys because they'd saved the world from the evil Nazis. Yay. But then towards the end of the 60s, we started seeing a lot of political unrest, riots in response to police brutality, and the assassination of Martin Luther King. So at that time, Night of the Living Dead really broke ground with casting Dwayne Jones as a black lead character in the middle of the civil rights era. Although Romero has come out and said, nah, not really, he just had the best audition, which, Woke King, love that. This movie is super nihilistic and gory. It has a little girl eating her parents, and it shows guts and blood, and it's shot in black and white. It's really cool. Very low budget, also. Fun fact, Romero kept making sequels over the next 40 years with Dawn of the Dead, which dealt with consumerism and capitalism, Day of the Dead about science ethics and the military, and then a ton more, all called something something of the dead. So why did we switch from the living dead to the dead? Fun story. Actually, Romero and his writing partner, John Russo, made Night of the Living Dead. But after the first one, the boys could not agree on where they were going to take the franchise. So they were like, you know what? We're going to do a little divorce where we both kind of take the franchise and run with it. So Russo kept the trademark to Living Dead. He was like, I'll do Living Dead, and then you do Dead.
To keep the franchises alive.
Russo really wanted to take it into funny, joke territory. Hey! And Romero wanted to take it a lot more seriously and do a lot more, social commentary. Took Russo a while because in the 80s, he made Return of the Living Dead, which was actually the first thing he kind of did with that IP.
The dead have risen from the grave.
Mister, there's 100 of those things out there.
How many did you say?
100?
And now the question is, how do we get them back into the ground?
Have you seen that one?
Wait,
Return of the Living Dead?
Okay, so in all honesty, I think I've seen all of them. No, I know I've seen all of them. I have no idea which one is which.
Because they're all so...
I always go... I remember the one with the mall being really good.
Yeah.
Is that Dawn of the Dead?
That's Dawn of the Dead.
Okay. Then there's one underground, which has the gruesome thing of a lot of zombies like pulling a guy apart and his guts coming out, which is one of the worst gory things I've ever seen in film. Is that Land of the Dead?
Who even fucking knows at this point?
I don't know.
Side question. Is this considered like one of the first franchises?
Oh, yeah, maybe, actually. Well, I guess there were a ton of like Hammer horror before, before that.
Yeah.
Well, the weird thing about this franchise is it just like took its goddamn time. Like it started in 1968 and then just like over the next 40 years, like once every 7 years they dropped one. Whereas like Hammer horror, I think was like from the 50s to the 70s or something. And they just like made a whole bunch of like Dracula. Even in those times, it was way more common to just like, we think of franchises as a thing of today, but this was actually like really common in the 40s, 50s, 60s, where you're just like, oh, we have Dracula, let's just make 1,000 Dracula movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know where it lands on the scale of like early franchises, but basically Return of the Living Dead is also a series and it's bonkers. It's like that really weird 80s straight to VHS kind of humor. They mention Night of the Living Dead in Return of the Living Dead, where they're basically just like sitting around like, have you seen that movie, Night of the Living Dead? That is actually a true story.
Oh, wait, but now I understand the difference because of, okay. So yeah, the tone of the Romeros get way more society critique driven.
There's humor
which is
in
fascinating. But then it's mostly like, whoa, that guy's dying weirdly.
Oy,
oh, funny. And then with the Returns series, it's more like they are directed. I think Return of the Living Dead was directed by Brian Usna, or the other guy that I always mix his name up with. Anyway, it's the guy who also made Reanimator, where the sort of the horror is this weird amalgam of. It's not necessarily comedy, but it's just like walking that tightrope of you're like, wait a
I would
minute.
say this one's a pretty hard comedy, even in its practical effects, where there's just this one zombie that comes in and it's just like skinless and it just goes, brains. And then they just whack the fuck out of him and then they're like, boy. It's so broad. And I think around that era, zombies were mostly just banished to like the straight to VHS era. Still very funny, very crappy. But yeah, now that we're in the 80s, I'd be remiss not to mention Thriller. Well, that's perhaps the one thing that people think of most when we think of a zombie. We mostly just think of that zombie, you know, Michael Jackson and the move with the arms. We're on a podcast, so I can't demonstrate my amazing dance moves.
She did it all wrong.
She did it all wrong. But yeah, that was mostly the 80s and the 90s. It was straight to VHS, like just dumb.
Is there any proof that sort of reinvigorated the genre into, because the Romero ones and become more and more straight to VHS B-movie kind of fodder?
Yeah.
And then I would think that maybe the zombie is out, you know? Not hip anymore.
Not cool.
And then maybe Thriller, like,
no real
brings that
evidence
back?
of that turning it into like a cool, serious cinema. Maybe even like made it more unserious because they were doing a silly dance. So that might have actually been the leading cause of cringification of the zombie.
Cringification.
But you know, we're in the mid-90s now, and then we have the first Resident Evil games.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
Yeah, that's 96. And Resident Evil had a completely different take on zombies. It was just like actually really, really scary again. And that, because we're a cinema podcast, so we're not going to be talking about games here.
No, but it's interesting that we already mentioned The Last of Us. So it's interesting to see that some tropes, like, because the zombie is a trope, get picked up in other audio-visual works and then get reinvigorated. Because I think that also happened with the zombie when we come to The Last of Us. there's this moment in time where it's out, then somebody else or something else reinterprets it, and then bloop, you get all the zombie shit again.
Oh, yeah. So that's basically, if we want to put it on a timeline, I think that big year was 2002. Because what happened then?
Tell me, Laura.
Oh, Danny Boyle, the pipes are calling.
From Glen to Glen.
28 days later.
So who are you?
I wake up today in hospital. I wake up and I'm hallucinating.
I've got some bad news.
They're infected.
Post 9/11 media, big zombie revolution. 28 days later, yeah.
Post 9/11 media.
2002, yeah. I love post 9/11 media.
It sounds like a program at Lab 111.
We could
Yeah.
vote if you want a post 9/11 media
Jesus.
program. Anyway, 28 days later, Love.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I love that. I love that movie.
Love.
It's one of my 2 favorite films shot on
Whatever that
on a
format
DV
is
camera.
that doesn't keep, like, I organized a screening recently of 28 Days Later, and basically it's just like impossible to get it in a format where it looks good on a big screen now.
No, yeah, it looks like
because
utter
they
crap.
filmed it on, what was it, like the Sony whatever new.
Yeah, it's DV cameras, so
Yeah.
it's not high def at all.
No. So I did the screening, and it's like the best version we could get looks like 360p on YouTube,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
You're just like,
Yeah.
is that zombies? It's like a bunch of zombies. So
I
that
can't-
movie kind of like got lost in a way, which is kind of sad.
I
But
can't wait for it to have the same treatment that Inland Empire got, that received, so David Lynch's Inland Empire shot also fully on digital non-HD cameras, recently got a 4K restoration.
well, apparently it's like really, really hard to restore this movie. So that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, no, it will look like this forever. Tell the audience what it's about, because it's
Okay.
important when it relates to 28 years later.
So 28 days later, Cillian Murphy wakes up naked in a hospital. Then he wakes up and he's like, I'm so thirsty, I'm going to have a Pepsi. Immediately.
Post 9/11 media.
Post
Post
9/11
9/11 media. Please be aware that this
He wakes
podcast
up,
has not
he
been sponsored
cracks
by
open
Coca-Cola.
a fresh Pepsi, which is delicious, as we all know. And then
Are you being sponsored by Pepsi?
shadow sponsor.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
So he goes, wait, where is everybody? He walks out into the streets of London. Some of the coolest fucking sequences in cinema where London is empty.
Is he still naked at this point?
I wanted to ask the exact same question. I thought she was going to say that. He walks out on the streets of London,
Dick
naked.
flapping in the wind. No, he put on like a little gown because he's a classy lad. So he walks out. He's like, "Where is everybody? Where is everybody?" And then there's like newspapers, like pandemic, like. Da, da, da.
Is it windy outside? Is the wind shaking? Is the
was
wind?
called
Is
shrinkage.
the wind shaking his barley?
Deep cut with Ken.
Oh no. So bad. Okay. Okay, are you
I'm back.
are you okay to continue?
I'm
Are
back.
you okay to take a deep breath? He's like, wait, where is everybody? And then he meets a bunch of people that are not infected. There's very few of them left, apparently, but there's a lot of really scary zombies. Oh, no, not zombies. Bunch of really scary infected.
Yeah.
And he goes into a church, and then he's like, church, that might be a nice place to seek refuge. Stacks of infected. and that's where you see for the first time how scary they are. They're like super fast, and they move in this kind of like contortionate kind of like really scary way. That's somehow that's not the sound they make. It's more like but in my mind it goes and then he finds Brendan Gleeson, which is delightful for the audience, and then they on the radio they hear that there's a safe haven somewhere like up north, so they have to then cross the country, and then in the meantime Cillian Murphy also falls in love with a girl. It's a great movie. Awesome. But yeah, since 28 Days Later, it's just been a huge moment for zombies. We've had so many.
But is this the first moment that they... Sorry, I'm so obsessed with the speed of zombies. But is this the moment that they move from slow dum-dums to running dum-dums?
I believe so, because it was just very different. And yeah, so basically it was a virus that was in a lab leak where they were studying crazy monkeys.
So is this where COVID came from?
Yeah. Lab leak. It's a realistic possibility. Anyway, let's not get into that. After that, big flow of zombie content. So we had Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland, Warm Bodies, World War Z, Train to Busan, Last of Us. Like, there's just so many zombie things, and they're all cool, and they all have different takes on the zombie.
Yeah.
The lovable zombie. We have the big masses of zombies. It's been a cool phase for the zombie.
Okay, so I think Train to Busan needs a big shout out because it's a fantastic film.
Oh my God.
The South Korean movie of people in a train, and then the people on the train get infected and they need to move from one side of the train to the other side of the train. It's almost like Mad Max Fury Road, but in a train with zombies.
Yeah.
If that is anything.
And like what I love about those zombies is that they're almost like lemmings. They're like spilling over each other, and it's like actually really scary.
And funny that you say that, because that's the thing that starts happening around that time. It also happens in World War Z, where they are like going from a mob that's horizontal to a mob that can pile up and sort of climb on each other and become this sort of ant
rat king.
heap. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that shit. It's that shit. Yeah, yeah.
The sequel is also just as good. Have you seen that?
What? There's a sequel?
Oh no, I haven't seen the sequel actually.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's all about like them living in this post-zombie land world, and they have like a mini city. But what do we think makes a great zombie film?
I think what makes a great zombie story is where it's all about like the really heavy decisions that humans have to make on how they deal with a situation like this. You know, it's never a story about, as we've established, it's never a story about zombies. It's a story about like how you navigate a world where this is happening. But there's all kinds of things that make a zombie movie fun. Like Shaun of the Dead is a great zombie movie because it's very funny and it plays with all the tropes. Something like World War Z, Train to Busan are great because it has amazing action and...
No, but I agree. It's more about, because all these tropes are a bit about the fear of the other. It's all a bit about xenophobia. But zombies, it's more, as you said, the issue. Mm-hmm. The issue of the apocalypse being like this large mass that needs to be fought, or you need to escape it, or you need to find your way so that you don't get fucking eaten or bit. This is why the zombies are an ideal way of, for instance, portraying a pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like maybe it's also a little bit about the fear of being the last sane person on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like everyone around me is going insane in a way that's like you have to be the sole survivor. That I think is very interesting about zombie content in general. And then in something like The Last of Us, which isn't a movie but is a game and then a series, I think it's very interesting where you just have to deal with all these moral dilemmas. Like, how far will you go to save the one person you care about when it could actually help the greater good? That's, I think, a really interesting dilemma placed in a situation like that.
And what's the worth of one life compared to? Yeah. Not going to spoil anything about the game, but one of the best audiovisual works made in the past 15 years, I think. By the way, it's
incredible.
Both games, not just the first. Want to get that out there for all the haters of the second game. So yeah.
On that thing of how whether one life is valuable compared to the masses, how do you think zombie films perhaps normalize violence against masses of people? Because with zombie films, it's always very, very violent.
Interesting.
So what I heard about this is that games like Resident Evil actually started existing when people started, you know, there was all the uproar about like Grand Theft Auto and stuff. It's like, well, you can't just like go around killing all these people. And then they were like, well, what if we made them zombies?
Yeah.
Would that work? So yeah, I think it's a way of moving away from killing prostitutes and drug dealers in games and making them zombies, because it's okay to kill a zombie. It can still be very conflicting when it's someone you know or when it's a...
But this is what I mean about what I find icky about zombies, is that they're so dehumanized that it doesn't make it... They're not worth anything. They're just, again, dum-dum. So, you know, we can kill them. That's something that, and if you track it back, because I think that's where you want to go, if you then track it back to where the original concept comes from, it's kind of disheartening, isn't it? Yeah. So then it's like, oh, but we can kill all these indigenous people, right? They're nothing really. Their body is trapped or their soul is trapped, so whatever.
But even what Lara said, if we're saying in like The Last of Us and these other films that they're not actually zombies because they haven't died yet, but they're just infected.
Yeah.
And yet we still kill them without question.
Yeah.
As well. It's sort of.
Yeah, we kind of watched it, but yeah.
But yeah, in a game like The Last of Us, it's like, okay, someone you love gets infected, you immediately have to kill them and that's hard, but you have to do it to prevent the spread of the thing to everyone else and everyone else dying. So yeah, that is.
But there's also this aspect of to save them. Like, really? Like, are they alive when they are dead?
No. Apparently,
can they be healed? Well, they can, but Joel doesn't give a fuck about that.
Don't give a fuck. Actually, this reminds me when we were earlier talking about the vampire versus zombie thing. Sinners is actually an interesting one because I think they actually deal with the vampire in a zombie like way.
Yeah.
It's like it's a mass. It's a big mass of vampires, which we don't see very often.
No, I think it's a fascinating film. I like the amalgamation of the rhythm and blues with the genre in Sinners.
I have a few fun honorable mentions. One is Charlie Brooker, the guy who brought us Black Mirror, made a mini-series about zombies called Dead Set back in 2008. Do you know where it's set? Where that's set?
No.
You're gonna laugh. It's in the Big Brother house.
What?
I think this is such a funny premise. Basically, it's set in the Big Brother house. There's people inside the Big Brother house, and they don't know that outside there's a raging zombie epidemic going on.
There's this weird thing happening in my mind where I'm sort of comparing zombies to reality people, like reality TV people, who are also usually a bit of dum-dums. So is this then a series that has dum-dums on the outside, dum-dums on the inside? Who's really infected here?
I think it plays more with the idea of, it must have been inspired by like when 9/11 happened or something, when they were in the Big Brother house and like they didn't.
Post 9/11 media.
Post 9/11 media. No, there was one instance where like a tragic like world event happened and the people in the Big Brother house didn't find out until like after they left the house. I think it's inspired by that happening. Then one that I'm also desperate to watch is Planet 9 from Outer Space. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
It's a cult movie from 1957, also starring that little fucker, Bela Lugosi. And the tagline is, "Unspeakable horrors from outer space paralyze the living and resurrect the dead."
Yeah, Planet 9 from Outer Space is in the list of worst movies ever made.
Yeah. I really want to see it.
It sucks donkey balls, but it's really fun to see. And if you've watched Ed Wood, the movie with Johnny Depp by Tim Burton, which is about the director who made Plan 9 from Outer Space, it's even better.
Do we have any other honorable mentions?
I know we briefly mentioned it, but the Cornetto trilogy by Edgar Wright.
Cornetto.
Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, The World's End.
Yeah.
They're my favorite zombie films.
Love
I would say.
Shaun of the Dead.
Firmly agree.
Yes.
Shaun of the Dead is amazing. It has maybe one of the best one-takers ever, where he goes out to that shop to get cornettos, I guess.
Yeah.
And then just passes the street, and he's
like distracted, and everything in the background is.
So the first one is the run where it's just normal. He goes out, he gets the cornettos, comes back, and there's nothing happening. And then he goes out, but he's so up his own ass,
going
really.
On with his girlfriend, and he's like worried about because he fucked up the dinner reservation.
Yeah.
And then he's like, fuck. And
the
he's
dinner
just
reservation at the restaurant that does all the fish.
That does nice dinner.
Yeah, I think it's even called the fish restaurant. The fish restaurant Beautiful. That does all the fish. But he goes there, but he's so sort of closed off from everything around him that the zombie's already there, and then it's the exact same shot, but then in the apocalypse.
What's funny about Shaun of the Dead, it takes him so long to realize that zombies are happening.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, crackhead, and oh, this drunk girl's in my yard. Like, and I wonder how long it would take us to realize there's a zombie apocalypse going on. One more thing I want to touch on briefly, seeing as we have a youth in the room, and Elliot, is Minecraft. Minecraft has a lot of zombies. I have never played Minecraft. I did watch that movie. So yeah, Minecraft, a lot of zombies. Chicken Jockey is apparently a zombie. That's a big thing where people throw popcorn, and that's why at Lab 111 we don't do popcorn or Minecraft.
Or Minecraft, yeah. Somebody asked me quite recently, are you gonna do, because you do Rocky Horror Picture Show, you do The Room, are you gonna do Minecraft, the film that clearly like has people like completely destroy your cinema?
You're like, let me think about it.
Yeah, let me think about that. No, really. No, I don't think so.
Nor maybe in 20 years, when it's become
Maybe in 20
cult
years.
classic.
But first we're gonna screen
but
Cats.
first, in 28 years.
Oh,
best segue.
sorry, best segue
Best segue
ever.
we've ever done. 28 years later is coming out on June 19th.
Right, sit here. Sit Auntie, what's going on? Jimmy, sit still, keep quiet, and do not move from this spot.
Pretty excited about this, I think, because it's going to be Danny Boyle and Alex Garland back in their seats where they belong, because there was also 28 Weeks Later, which I haven't seen yet. I'm going to watch it this week, but apparently is not very good.
No, rather forgettable. With Jeremy Renner. So, sorry, that sounded like the reason of this being forgettable is Jeremy Renner. No.
I do think, like, on the grand scheme of things, Jeremy Renner is a little bit forgettable as a person. But he's just catching strays for no reason. I don't know why I said that. That's really mean. Anyway, 28 years later, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Jodie Comer, Rafe Fiennes, and we're going back to the island to see what's up. And
you said Rafe Fiennes again, like he's also gonna be naked in this film.
I was thinking that.
Stay tuned.
Jesus, okay, yeah.
I don't know if he's gonna be naked.
I think in the trailer he's definitely topless.
Well,
So he got ripped for that Odyssey movie, The Return. There's this beautiful interview with him. Somebody asked him like, "Wow, you're in your 60s. You look ripped," and he said, "The only thing I said was towards the people that trained me, I want my body to look like an old piece of rope." And he kind of does. He kind of does.
Chewed up Tootsie Roll.
Chewed up Tootsie Roll.
Yeah, I've been getting questions whether it's important to watch 28 days and 28 weeks before. Not really. You can just go in and watch this. Apparently, it's just like a standalone story that takes place in this universe. It's important to know that there was a virus, but I'm sure they'll tell you.
Yeah, and the location is different.
I saw this really cool thing that I think maybe everyone has seen by now is the iPhone rig. Have you seen this?
No?
Oh, okay. So 20 years later is a lot of it is shot on iPhone, which again, they're doing that thing where they're going to shoot it in a format that in 20 years, we're all going to be really annoyed. It's like, well, we can't fucking remaster this because it was shot on iPhone.
There's no more information in the frame.
No. But they built this rig, which is like 20 phones in a half circle, kind of like Matrix Neo
Yeah, exactly.
style.
Yeah.
But they did it on iPhones to kind of have that effect of like in the moment shooting. But it's like a 20 iPhone rig. It looks really fucking cool.
But is it like for big shots or is like...
I don't know what they want to... I haven't seen the final result yet.
Yeah, no, sure. But I mean... well, this is a nice conversation about something we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's eager anticipation because I did think that first teaser trailer that came out.
Yeah,
fucking
I
rocked.
love the weird poem that's underneath it.
Yes.
The 1, 2, 3, boots on the ground. Yeah,
so
it was just like, oh my god.
That combined with like something as someone who's now 36, that Teletubbies like
Yeah.
was a big scary part of my childhood, and that combined with like that, I thought it was the best teaser trailer that's come out in the last few. And then they went and did a full trailer, 3 minutes, that shows you the entire movie that I've like sat through with my eyes closed. So very excited about that. As we said, 28 years later is screening from June 19th here at Lab, a couple times a day. So get your tickets for that. And if you want more history on scaries and ghouls, listen to our episode on the history of vampires. Stay connected with us at Celebrating Cinema and Lab by following at Lab111 on Instagram and Letterboxd. If you love what we do, support us by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us climb the ranks of the podcast charts.
And don't forget to check the show notes for all the films mentioned, bonus info, and ticket links. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Elliot Bloom, with music from Hugo Emertzal and artwork from Studio FFF.